The wind moved like a whispered memory through the abandoned valley, carrying with it a resonance that felt both ancient and new. And standing right at the place where the earth split into two paths, one familiar, one frightening, were two figures bound by something deeper than time itself. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo had returned to where it all began, yet neither knew why the land was calling them. Only that it wouldn't let them go until every buried truth resurfaced. The world around them had changed. The once thriving city nearby was now a ghost of its former self, echoing with remnants of laughter, shouts, and life that had faded long ago. But here, in the valley of forgotten echoes, something still breathed, something waited, something remembered them. Xiao Zhan stepped forward first, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots disturbingly loud in the silent air. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the terrain. Sharp cliffs, shimmering dust floating like silver ashes, and at the very center, a stone altar cracked as if struck by lightning. He didn't have to ask why they were here. The feeling inside his chest already answered. This was destiny reclaiming what was hers. Behind him, Wang Yibo walked with quiet confidence, though his heart beat faster with every step. His instincts rarely failed him, and right now they screamed that the boundary between past and present was dangerously thin. He glanced around, noting details Xiao Zhan had missed. Small vibrations in the air, faint distortions like ripples, shadows flickering where nothing lived. It was happening again. The phenomenon that once shattered their lives was awakening. The two men exchanged a brief look, silent, sharp, unspoken, and then almost on cue the ground trembled. Not violently. Not enough to send rocks tumbling or trees swaying. Instead, it felt like the world had just exhaled after holding its breath for far too long. A low hum rose from beneath the earth. At first soft, then louder, then piercing. Xiao Zhan staggered, gripping his head as flashes of memory, not his own, raced through him. A battlefield beneath a bleeding sky. A promise whispered through smoke. A hand reaching for another before everything dissolved into blinding light. Wang Yibo grabbed his arm, steadying him. It's the echoes again. They're stronger this time. I know, Xiao Zhan whispered through clenched teeth. They're trying to show us something. A swirling distortion formed above the stone altar, twisting like a storm made of light and sound. The air crackled with a strange static, pulling at their clothes, dragging at their breath. For a moment, the world bent around them, and then the scene snapped into place as if someone had pulled back a curtain. They were no longer alone. A figure materialized, translucent, flickering like a damaged hologram. A man dressed in ancient warrior robes. His expression filled with a grief so deep it echoed in the bones. "You've returned," the apparition whispered, voice trembling like wind against glass. "The cycle begins again." Wang Yibo stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" The figure flickered, his outline dissolving before reforming again. "I am what remains of your past, the part you left behind." Xiao Zhan's heart tightened. "Why are we seeing this now?" "Because the world is collapsing," the spirit replied. "Because the echoes of what once was are bleeding into what is. And because only the two of you can anchor the truth before it consumes everything." The air vibrated with tension, almost painful. Then, without warning, the apparition raised a hand, and a beam of shimmering light shot outward, enveloping Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo. Their vision blurred. The sound of rushing wind filled their ears. And in the blink of an eye, they were swallowed by another time. Everything changed. They stood in the middle of an ancient city glowing under a crimson sky. People ran through the streets, shouting warnings as towers crumbled in the distance. The ground shook violently, cracks spreading like veins of destruction. But the chaos wasn't the most shocking thing. It was the sight of two warriors, uncannily identical to Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo, fighting side by side, surrounded by an army of shadow-like creatures dripping with darkness. Their blades moved with perfect synchronicity, every strike echoing the next as if choreographed by fate itself. Xiao Zhan stared in disbelief. "Those are us." Wang Yibo nodded slowly, breath catching in his throat. "A past life. We were guardians. The echoes surged again, pulling them forward until they were standing only inches away from their past selves. They could feel their emotions, fear, strength, determination, sorrow, as if those memories belonged to them even now. The ancient Xiao Zhan, blood spilling from a wound in his side, turned to his comrade. This is the last seal. Once it breaks, the cycle will restart. We won't remember anything. The ancient Wang Yibo clenched his jaw, defiant even against fate. Then let it restart. If we lose each other, we'll find each other again. The world trembled, this time with the weight of truth. A deafening roar surged through the sky as the two warriors slammed their blades together, releasing a torrent of light so powerful it cracked the heavens open. The explosion ripped through the city, blinding, tearing, reshaping everything. And then, silence. The vision shattered like glass. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo found themselves back in the valley, gasping for breath, knees buckling. Their bodies felt heavy, as if they had physically lived through the battle. Xiao Zhan pressed a hand to his chest. We sealed something away, something dangerous. Wang Yibo closed his eyes, letting the echo of past emotions wash over him. And that seal is breaking. The stone altar glowed with cracks of white-hot light. The hum beneath the ground grew louder, no longer a warning but a countdown. A burst of energy erupted from the altar, sending both of them flying backward. Dust exploded into the air. The earth split open, revealing a void of swirling darkness. From within that void, something monstrous began to emerge. A creature of shadows, its form constantly shifting, its eyes burning with ancient rage. Its presence alone warped the air, twisting reality into fragments. Xiao Zhan forced himself to his feet, every muscle trembling. This is what we sealed away. Wang Yibo joined him, wiping blood from his lip. Then we finish what we started. The creature roared, shaking the valley. The sound wasn't just loud. It reached into their minds, tearing at their memories, pulling up images from every past version of themselves. Every life they had lived. Every promise they had made. Every time they had found each other again. The memories fueled them. With renewed determination, Xiao Zhan formed a glowing sphere of energy in his palm, a technique he had never learned in this lifetime yet remembered instinctively from the echo of his past self. Wang Yibo summoned a blade made of pure light, its form flickering but strong. He held it tightly, grounding himself with a fierce breath. The creature lunged. The valley erupted into chaos. Xiao Zhan dodged the first strike, rolling across the ground before launching a wave of energy toward the monster's torso. The blast hit dead center, sending ripples of light spreading across its body. The valley was still trembling, as if trying to remember how to be quiet after centuries of holding its breath. Dust drifted lazily through the air, catching the sunlight in shimmering specks. But even in that deceptive calm, Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo felt the tension. An invisible pulse, steady and ancient, coursing beneath the ground like a silent heartbeat. Xiao Zhan inhaled slowly. The air tasted strange, metallic, almost electric. It's stronger now, he murmured, scanning the cliffs rising like jagged guardians around them. Every step we take. It feels like the past is watching. Wang Yibo didn't deny it. He felt it too, the weight, the familiarity, the unspoken pull. The valley wasn't just responding to their presence. It was reacting to something buried deep inside them, something they still didn't fully understand. A gust of wind tore through the valley suddenly, whipping their clothes and carrying a faint ringing sound. Not like a bell, not like a whisper. It was more like memory, a memory calling them by name. Xiao Zhan froze. His breath hitched as a thin, wavering figure appeared at the far end of the valley. A silhouette, barely there, trembling like flame behind a veil of fog. But what made him stiffen wasn't the apparition itself. It was the overwhelming feeling that he knew this person. That he had once stood exactly where that silhouette stood. In another lifetime. Wang Yibo's eyes narrowed, sharp and instinctive. It's another echo. But this echo didn't flicker away. Instead, it stepped closer, each movement causing the ground to pulse with low vibrations. As it approached, its form sharpened, revealing the features of a man dressed in ancient armor, hair tied high, eyes shadowed with a pain so deep it carried across eras. The apparition lifted a hand, and the entire valley reacted. Rocks sharpened, the wind stilled, the light dimmed, and then the world ripped open. Xiao Zhan staggered as a wave of visions slammed into him. Flashes of battlefields, firestorms, collapsing temples, a sky splitting open with streaks of red lightning. His heart pounded painfully as another memory forced itself forward. A promise whispered beneath a dying sun. You must return when the echoes awaken. Wang Yibo reached for him, but before he could, the valley shifted again. The air stretched like liquid, distorting everything around them. The cliffs bent inward. The ground rippled like water. And suddenly, Xiao Zhan was no longer standing beside him. He was somewhere else entirely. Yibo spun around, panic slicing through him. Xiao Zhan! His shout bounced through the valley, swallowed almost instantly. No answer. Only a faint echo, soft, distant and haunting. The vision had taken Xiao Zhan alone. The world around Xiao Zhan transformed in a single blinding pulse. One moment he was standing in the valley. The next he stood in the ruins of a vast ancient hall, its ceiling open to a storm-ridden sky. Thousands of cracked lanterns hung above him, trembling like frightened fireflies. And there, at the center, stood the ancient version of himself, the warrior he had once been. Xiao Zhan stared at him, breathless. The resemblance was undeniable. But the aura was different. Stronger, sharper, heavy with wounds, victories, regrets. You've come back, the ancient Xiao Zhan whispered. Xiao Zhan swallowed hard. Why am I seeing this? To remember, the echo replied, stepping closer. Because the seal we created is failing. And if you forget who you were, you cannot face what's coming. The wind howled through the ancient hall, scattering ash. Echo Zhan reached out his hand, and the moment Xiao Zhan touched it, a surge of memories tore through him so violently he dropped to his knees. He saw the valley as it once was, the heart of a thriving kingdom. He saw himself and Wang Yibo standing as guardians sworn to protect the boundary between worlds. He saw the monstrous shadow they had sealed away. He felt the pain of sacrifice, the weight of destiny, the heartbreak of knowing they would lose their memories for centuries. Until the cycle reset. A tear slipped down Xiao Zhan's cheek, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming force of recognition. He suddenly understood why the valley pulled at him. Why it felt like home and danger all at once. Because he had died here, and been reborn here. The ground shook violently. The vision shattered like breaking glass. The ancient hall folded inward, swallowed by darkness, and Xiao Zhan was thrown backward, straight into Wang Yibo's arms. Yibo held him tightly, breath coming fast. You disappeared, I thought. His voice cracked ever so slightly. Are you okay? Xiao Zhan nodded weakly, leaning on him for balance. I remember everything. The valley responded instantly to his words. Thunder rolled across a cloudless sky. The stone altar cracked again, releasing streams of silver light. The air vibrated. The earth pulsed faster. The awakening had begun. Wang Yibo's grip tightened. What did you see? Xiao Zhan lifted his gaze to the glowing altar. His eyes, still wet, were fierce, determined. We sealed something here, he said slowly. Something powerful. Something dangerous. And now it wants out. Xiao Zhan nodded. And if it escapes, the world won't survive. Lightning tore across the air in a jagged arc. The valley floor split open, revealing veins of luminous energy pulsating beneath the surface like a living creature. Every echo of the past surged at once. Voices, visions, memories, rushing through the air like a storm of souls. Wang Yibo steadied his stance, his instincts sharpening to a blade's edge. Then we stop it. Whatever it takes. Xiao Zhan met his eyes. Certain. Together. The valley exploded with light. Wind roared. The cliffs trembled. The altar erupted, sending spirals of energy shooting into the sky. Thousands of ancient voices whispered all at once. Remember. Awaken. Fight. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo stepped forward, ready to face the full truth of their past, ready to reclaim their destiny, ready to confront the darkness they had once sealed. The echoes had awakened, and so had they. If you enjoyed this continuation and want part 2, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next powerful episode of Echoes.